Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Attack on Titan anime review. This one's going to be for Season 4, Part 2, Episode 12. So this is the final episode of Part 2, but we did get confirmation that there is going to be a Part 3. So thankfully they won't be doing a movie, they will be just doing anime Part 3 next year. I think it was just 2023, no date given. So I don't really know how long that means. Will they spend because I'm assuming they don't have like a full season worth of material left to do, or will they utilize all that, maybe flesh out the ending? I'm not really sure, because it feels like we're just about to jump into the final action sequence, which I can't see taking an insane amount of time that they need 12, 13 episodes just to do what they have left. So it'll be interesting to see if it's a shorter season, shorter episode count, or what. But this episode, it was interesting to keep the sort of flashback to all the characters' first time seeing Marley right until the end here. That was kind of an interesting one. I liked it. And it's this weird thing where I both liked, but also a lot of my criticisms of this episode come from the fact that Eren is sort of back in play here. We actually did stuff with Eren for the first time in ages. So he's obviously the most interesting character because he's so clearly the main character, and none of the other characters have anything anywhere near as kind of close to being main as he does. But in the same episode that he is the one who has a lot of the nuance in the scenes, he's also the character where they seemingly just double down on, yeah, he is doing very villainous things and there doesn't seem to be a twist coming. This is just what he's doing. And I'm not sure I particularly like that direction that they've taken the character in, at least with the presentation and explanation of that we've had so far. And so it just creates this very weird situation for me with this show where I'm more worried than excited going into the ending Part 3, Season 4 Part 3 stuff, that I don't know if with this setup they'll be able to sort of scavenge a good ending out of what they have here, just because of how far they've taken Eren down this path. And like I said, there doesn't seem to be some sort of twist to highlight that it seems like he's doing this, but actually there's a little bit more to it. We'll obviously wait and see. I'm not going to cast my full judgment right now without knowing what happens. But I am, like I said, worried more than excited for the last season, which is not, I think, a great position to be in. And I've been more or less saying this through all of my Season 4 reviews, that this direction for Eren as a character I thought was sort of questionable. I think it's more down to, the presentation of the fact that they haven't used him a lot over the course of the season. And when they have, there's always been an undercurrent of, we're not telling you the full story. He's had conversations with this character and that character, and you don't know what he's about. But now we've got a lot of those conversations, and it seems like, oh, there's no special secret twist. It's just, here he was telling a couple of people what his true plans were, and it is kill the rest of the world. And it's oh, I didn't expect it to be that straightforward and to the point. Okay, but is there nothing more you could have done? Because I like the initial sequence of just everyone's kind of having fun exploring Marley because they're kind of acting undercover, and it highlights this idea for a lot of the characters. Hanji's beginning to present the idea that, oh, you'd never think that the devils are around here. Look how well we're getting on with people. And then Mikasa comes over to Eren with the ice cream and is just hey, try this. He remembers the memories and points out the internment camps. He mentions the internment camps, and immediately the audience are oh, yeah, they're having fun here because they don't know who they are. But just over there, there's an internment camp with Eldians effectively, used as quote-unquote slaves to a degree. And then they double down on that with, kind of why they're here is to sort of basically watch this meeting in, I guess, like Parliament or whatever, and the government, of people who are apparently defending the, Eldian people. But then when they go there, it turns out that the guy is very specifically only wanting, like, aid for the Eldians who are not on the island because they've never been to the island, and so they're not devil Eldians, they're the Eldians that they know. And this is seemingly the thing that just puts Aron over the edge and makes him leave the group and do what he does at basically the start of Season 4, Part 1, when he enters the kind of fray and sort of starts the war again, is that he realizes, even the people who we thought were sort of sympathetic towards us still ultimately hate the island, and that it doesn't seem like there's going to be any way whatsoever to change people's minds about that. And so he now realizes, kind of like what he said at the end of Season 3, and I think this is part of in a way the problem, is that, they basically told you what Aron'S Arc was, but just hid it for some reason, even though it was the same thing, that he views the expansion of, like, there's more people out there in the world as just there being more people who hate them out there. And in that sense, like, you understand Aron's sort of part of his character turn, because he feels it's sort of hopeless, that there's no way for peace that isn't just, like he sort of says, wiping out the sort of foundation of why people hate Eldians in the first place, which the only way to really do that is to just wipe everyone out except the Eldians. And I think that's what they were doing with the kind of scene where most of their time in Marley, they actually seemingly spend sort of like having fun, eating, drinking with the other sort of like immigrant people who I guess were another country that Marley defeated, who are sort of in like an Eldian position. And it sort of makes sense to a degree why Aron would be more interested in that than sort of having fun at the marketplace with all the kind of people with money in a way. But in the back of your head, you sort of know, I suppose, that he deep down also plans to kill these people as well, because even though these people are also sort of, quote unquote, oppressed by Marley, those people probably still hate Eldia as well. Even though we don't quite get that, I think that's Aron's sort of view on things, is that if he told these people that he was who he was and that he was an Eldian, they would also have the same issue just because of the history of the world. And so even though he was able to get on well with them, it doesn't solve the issue as such. And I think that's what the end scene is. Like, they arrive at the major port city of Marley, and we see at the end of the episode the Wall Titans arrive, I guess, at the port city of Marley. So I'm guessing at the start of Part 3 we are going to see this group of people be killed. And that's part of why Aron was crying, is that he looks upon this group and realizes that, I'm here with the people who I know will sort of be some of the first people to die at the hands of the rumbling later on. So I thought that was kind of an interesting scene, given where they ultimately went with things. But that leads us, I suppose, into the in a way, like, odd selection of scenes, because it's interesting in a way because we've been wanting to know more about, like, his conversation with Yelena, what he said to Flock. We've been wanting to know more about what he said to Zeke. But it all seemingly comes back to this moment where he asks Mikasa, Aron asks Mikasa how she truly, like, feels about him. Now, I think he specifically says, do you sort of, care about me because I saved you when we were little, or is it because we're family? And she is obviously taken aback by this, because effectively, like, we as the audience know, this is her opportunity to say that she actually romantically loves Aaron, and that it's not because they're family, it's not because he saved her, it's that no, she truly does care about him. But she doesn't say that. She says family, and Aaron, we don't get too much of an answer, but like, he's obviously not like super like happy with the answer or anything like that. He doesn't really give much of a reaction. And Mikasa then reflects on this and is like, I wonder if like things with Aaron would have gone differently if I basically told him the truth effectively. And I'm kind of like, wait. That only means something if they're going for the idea that Aaron feels that way about Mikasa, which in my mind has never been set up in the show up until basically before this point. You can maybe say it goes back to the scene where Aaron talked to Mikasa and Armin and they had to sit down, and it was like their first time kind of meeting in season 4 in a way. And he more challenged Mikasa on the idea of like, can you break free of your kind of Ackerman sort of inclinations. But I more lent that in the direction of like he's more about freedom, and he feels that Mikasa is not free to make choices by herself because she's an Ackerman, and is sort of like attached to Aaron in that way. Again, that relationship works, Mikasa towards Aaron, but I never really got the impression that Aaron views her in that way. So the show suddenly deciding that that is actually a major plot point, how Aaron feels about Mikasa, feels weird beyond just like beyond just to Aaron, Mikasa being part of his main group of friends, with obviously Mikasa and Armin being the main two, but him also caring about, Connie, Jean, and so on. So I don't know what exactly we were meant to go with that, because the bit with Zeke that they add on, it seems to be that Aaron has just asked Zeke, like, what do you know about the Ackerman clan and how they like attach onto people? So Aaron's theory about Mikasa not having sort of a will of her own to act against Aaron because she's sort of attached onto her because like he activated her to a degree. According to Zeke, who I guess knows a little bit about this, his knowledge is that yes, during a life and death situation, that is when an Ackerman sort of activates their sort of powers and why they're so skilled and powerful. But that there's no evidence of this sort of like the Ackerman having like a host, which is I think effectively what Aaron is trying to say of his relationship with Mikasa, is that's why she's like latched onto him so much. And he basically points out that like my opinion of Mikasa is that she just really likes you and would be willing to do anything for you. And Aaron then is like, what are you talking about? Like, I only have 4 years to live. I've got like other stuff to focus on, which seemingly was him kind of saying that like, oh, well, I'm not talking about like a relationship or anything like that. I just wanted to know what this meant, which again leans more into the direction of I think he cared about this more in the sense of the idea of like freedom and like if Mikasa actually has freedom or not. But maybe he was lying to Zeke and masking if he actually felt about it. I'm not really sure. But again, this was intercut with scenes of Aaron talking to Historia. It was like, hey, Historia exists. They remembered her. And obviously, like, we know the dynamic of, like, what was sort of planned for her and, like, Aaron speaking out and wanting to stop this and so on. That this is where they sort of come up with the idea of, like, oh, what if I got pregnant? And obviously, we don't know who the father is. And because of the way the scenes were organized here, it again sort of made me feel like, are they implying, like, Aaron might be the father here? That, like, this is the plan they sort of come up with together to sort of save her from being, used in the way that, like, Aaron doesn't want. Because, again, it's this idea of, like, he seemingly confides in her the plan, like, the full plan. He says it to her, he says it to Flock, that he wants to wipe out the world, that's the way he sees as being the only way to actually solve things. And she obviously disagrees with this and says, like, trying to keep this a secret would make me a person I can't be, like, proud of being. And it makes sense in a way, like, he again, if there's an Eren romance in the series, I would lean more towards Eren Historia than I would Eren Mikasa, because of the scenes that the characters have had together. I just don't think they've done enough to set up Eren actually feeling that way about Mikasa, especially if it's going to be a major plot point. So this is kind of what was like, okay, well, I guess if you can't have a relationship with someone, having like a child to leave behind sort of feels sort of symbolically fitting in a way for Eren and what he might want to do. So that might make sense, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Again, it's the case of like, okay, Historia is an important character, but like, if it's not this, then why are you focusing on her? And like, what actually is going on here? In that sense, it was like an odd collection of scenes, because like I said at the start, it doesn't exactly like add that much onto what Eren is doing or isn't doing. It just kind of says that he wants to kill everyone, which is just a slight addition onto what he said at the end of season 3, which was that he lacked hope and just felt that, oh, the outside world, that's cool. Everyone else was kind of like, that's cool, there's more world out there, but he's like, oh, there's more enemies out there. Because again, they play on the idea that the others are having these small interactions with the outside world that are mainly positive, and can look at these positive moments as being major positives and be optimistic for the future that things can change, even though there's other negatives going on. Whereas because Eren has the memories of his father, and he knows the full extent of that, he's effectively through that sort of like experienced life under the Marleyans and what it was like, and he knows exactly what has happened. And there's like the implication that he also knows stuff from the future, from when he kissed Historia's hand, that he knows kind of how this will turn out, that there's no, I guess, peaceful way to stop this, so this is the only way to actually do it, as violent and crazy as it is. And so that's kind of what they were playing on in this episode, of like Mikasa sort of reflecting on the idea of that only in reflection does she realize how changed Eren was from a much earlier point, that a lot of them are thinking Eren has only recently changed, but she realizes that she saw it there in those little subtle moments. Again, the problem is just that I don't particularly like the idea that this is the path that they've taken the character on, to where he feels genocide is the only option to do anything here. And I can get it, like, in the sense that, like, you feel that this is very Eren, because he was very, like, kill all the Titans initially, and now he's changed to sort of just kill all of his enemies, and he still has that same drive. It's just, I always felt that Eren had sort of a strive for, freedom type thing going on. And I guess in his head, he views freedom for parity as being the freedom that he wants. And there is that angle of like, he is doing this mainly for his friends. But I don't know how satisfying things are going to be when we actually get into the action, because it feels like the series is now very predictable in a way, where Eren is going to get taken down, I guess. I'm guessing it will be Mikasa who is the one who, kills him in the end. And this will be how they resolve this arc of, does Mikasa actually have the freedom to like go against Eren? And this will be sort of proof to Eren that she did have that freedom. And it will be proof to herself that she can actually like do this, because so many characters have been asking Mikasa, like, can you actually fight against Eren? And that's fine. At least it's something that's been set up. But I'm not the biggest fan that like it's seemingly the only Mikasa thing that we have, and that it's just more Mikasa action focus, and that's really all that there is. So it feels like that's going to happen. Will they kill off a bunch of the main cast along the way because it's the final battle? I'm not super sure. I'm guessing just because again, it's Attack on Titan, so you always have the feeling of like they might just kill a lot of them, or the show's been very much like not necessarily just killing everyone in the last few seasons. That was more of a season 1 trick that it did, like introducing all these characters only to kill them. And it's been very obvious that we have a main cast of characters who aren't going to just be like immediately killed. Sasha and what happened with her, obviously they presented as being a major thing, but they're still not doing that particularly regularly with the cast. So I don't know. I can maybe see like someone like a Connie maybe going down in the battle, or like say we lose Falco somewhere along the way, or something like that. But again, they focused on Falco. He's a young character. I have a feeling they might have him like survive. But either way, like I think they'll kill off some characters as we go towards the finale. But in that sense, like I feel we're going for, at the same time, this rather like kind of extreme sort of the main character becomes the villain arc, but it's also very like by the numbers, this is what's going to happen. The things I am interested in are effectively like what sort of final words or thoughts do we have from Eren that are more present day, because everything that we've had with Eren in the last while has basically been the past. Ever since he basically activated the Founding Titan power, we haven't really cut back to him to get his perspective on things now. So I'm very interested to see when he's fighting, when he has to like fight his friends, what does he do? Because I thought this would sort of be part of like the trick that Eren would do, which is that the other way to counter, I suppose, what's happening here would be to eliminate the power of the Titans, remove it from all Eldians, and I guess killing the Founding Titan, killing the parasite thing that is like the core of the Titans, which gave it to Ymir in the first place, would, I suppose, end Titans completely. It would eliminate the sort of magic aspect to all the Eldians that allows them to become Titans. And if that was done in front of the world, there would be that realization that like, oh, the power of the Titans is gone. So there's still a war going on, but the thing that the war is about, it doesn't exist anymore. And that's a pathway to kind of freedom. And I'm guessing they'll still do that. I guess they'll still highlight the idea that Eren with the Founding Titan is sort of, him is the Titan power in a way at its most powerful, but also its most vulnerable. So him being killed also kills the sort of parasite thing that's the core of the Titan powers, and him sacrificing himself makes it happen. Now, the problem with that is that if he is in full control of this, the second his friends catch up with him, he should just stay still and allow himself to be killed. But I'm guessing there's going to have to be some sense where like this only works if he fights against them hard. And that's very difficult to, I think, accept when he's doing this for his friends and his friends are going to be fighting against him. And because there's the weirdness with the paths and the fact that he knows the future, he theoretically has to know the result of what happens already. So if the way the show ends is that Eren is defeated, he has to know going into this that this is a like losing thing. Because they've seemingly taken the approach that like this stuff is sort of like locked in place in a way that like you can minorly influence the past, but like it is stuff that has already like happened in a way that like, oh, like Eren urges his father to like kill the previous, like get the power of the Founding Titan, but that happened, and it's like implied that it was because of Eren. So the question is really like, because this creates time being so weird in that like if the Titans continue, like the next person who has the Attack Titan could be influencing Eren at this point, and so on. And then because he's the current Attack Titan, like is the future that he has saw locked in place in a way or not. It gets very sort of complicated then in terms of what's actually going on here, where like, okay, I get it. Like, he believes that killing everyone is the only way to achieve the freedom that he wants for his people, his friends. But how he, I suppose, fights against them is going to be so weird, because he theoretically shouldn't fight them. And this gets into the weirdness of which matters more, his friends or killing the rest of the population. In that, I guess they might have to go with the idea that he's forced to fight his friends to allow the rumbling to kill the population, but that just feels so weird. Like, what are we doing with the plot that this is what it's kind of come down to? And I'm not sure how I feel about that, really at all. As for, I suppose, just the scene with the Titans crossing the sea, it was weird to see the giant wall Titans like swimming and going so fast. I don't really know how I felt about that, because I think in my head I'd always pictured it as just the Titans walking across the ocean, but you have to realize that for that to make sense, the wall Titans would have to be like stupidly big. They're already really, really, really big, but for them to be able to walk like across the ocean, given how deep it is, they would have to be excessively big to the point where like no one would be able to defeat them. And, you know, so big that it would probably adversely affect the planet, almost, the amount of them that there are. So they had to kind of do the scale like this to make it work. But the effect of all these Titans like arriving on land definitely hit the fact that, okay, a bunch of them get eliminated by the warships, but then the next wave just comes through and sends all the warships flying. That it's going to be pretty brutal whatever happens next. But I do find myself in a position where I have a lot of doubts and worries going into the final season, more so than anything. This writer has managed to deliver some really great stuff before, but I feel going into the finale, he's ridden himself into a corner with what's happened here. And the direction the main character has gone in here with Aaron. I'm not sure if whatever direction they take with the ending is going to work for me. I think a lot will depend on how sort of, you know, where on the scale of sort of optimistic to sort of like harshly realistic they go with the ending. Because if they just do the typical Attack on Titan thing of like, everything has to be dark, people have to die, and Eren succeeds and they manage to, you know, only take him out like right at the end, I'm not sure how I'm going to really feel about that. That just kind of feels like, come on. You know, I know this show typically has not been optimistic and people sort of like it because it's different, but I feel you have to have a little bit of, you know, just, you know, optimism at the end here, in terms of how do you, in a way realistically but also satisfying, create some sense of peace between the island and the rest of the world. Is it going to be enough for the world to sort of see Eldians actually being the ones to take down the thing that would have given them overall victory and like dominance in the world? I'm not sure, because of what Eren saw there and just the status of the world as it's been. This has caused Eren to be like that, and it's hard to sort of fully ignore that thought process that Eren has gone on. But anyway, they're my thoughts on the Season 4 Part 2 finale episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are, but that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.